In breaking news now, this hour, South Africa has entered into a recession. The last time we were in this position was in the first half of 2018. Stats SA announced the latest GDP figures just a short while ago, and our economy's growth last year stands at a tiny 0.2%.
The numbers that we are releasing today shows that the GDP contracted in the fourth quarter of 2019 by 1.4%. If we compare the fourth quarter with the corresponding period in the previous year, we saw a contraction of 0.5%. And as we are releasing the results for the fourth quarter, it's possible for us to calculate the growth for 2019 in its totality, and that comes out as a very small increase of 0.2% for 2019 compared with 2018. We also provided you with a graph looking at a time series. As you will recall, the definition for a recession is 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. So South Africa has entered into a recession again in the last half of 2019. The previous recession we had was the first half of 2018. All three sectors in the economy, that is the primary, secondary and tertiary sectors, recorded negative growth.
Well, this news of negative growth doesn't bode well for us in the medium term, particularly on the 27th of March this month. The Moody's, that's the ratings agency, is set to review our sovereign rating. We have to wait and find out. Tough times are ahead. The tax ombud is said to be structurally independent of SARS. This comes as the Finance Minister Tito Mboweni said more funds will be made available to the office of the ombud. The ombud previously said SARS had too much power and an office to counteract that was needed. Ian says. John Bailey reports.
Good news for taxpayers. The Office of the Tax Ombud has always maintained it's highly inappropriate that SARS is in control of its finances. The Tax Ombudsman was established to offer an alternative recourse for taxpayers where there were failures in service delivery and tax administration. But it couldn't properly perform its oversight duties because SARS controlled its finances. This will now change.
The Office of the Tax Ombud will be structured as an independent office. SARS will no longer control the finances of the Office of the Tax Ombud. The Tax Ombud would get its own budget and it controls its own funds.
During the 2018-19 tax year, the Office of the Tax Ombud received nearly 5,000 complaints against SARS. Just over 2,000 were resolved. Millions were clawed back from SARS, and this amount is set to increase.
I think you're just going to have more resources for a faster response time. I think the bigger issue is the Ombudsman needs the freedom to be able to review things independently without having to go through the Minister.
It's hoped that the independence of the Tax Ombuds's office will improve tax trust in the revenue collector and improve South Africans' sense of tax obligation. John Bailey, Pretoria.
In other news now making international headlines, Britain and the European Union are currently navigating what their relationship will be after Brexit. Both sides say they want to reach a deal by the end of this year. About 100 UK officials are now in the EU's Brussels hub for the first round of talks. The second one will be held in London later in March. Israel's longest-serving leader, Benjamin Netanyahu, has claimed victory in the third election in less than a year. He called the win a great victory for Israel, but he's still 2 seats short of a governing majority. The Palestinian Liberation Organization, that's the PLO, said it was clear that settlement, occupation and apartheid had won the election. Meanwhile, Netanyahu is still facing charges of bribery, breach of trust and fraud. The first trial of the sitting Prime Minister in Israel is due to begin on the 17th of March. Netanyahu has denied any wrongdoing, calling it political witch hunt. Still ahead in sports with the one and only Nandi Shabalala. Chippa United coach Norman Mapeza quits the Chile Boys.
So hubby is the one that encouraged you to change her idea?
You know pillow talk, when you pillow talk? That's the most most precious time of anyone in a relationship. He actually said to me that I need to take out insurance.
Yeah. Husband of the year nominee.
Look, I've saved because of Maxwell.
Yes, Maxwell.
I was like, yes, baby. So now in our pillow talk, I think now we need to speak about other things and not the insurance.
SMS SAVE to 38418 or call 08600 60,000 and change that ID.
Baraka presents just one tablet of Baraka contains the nutrients to help provide your body with energy all day. Feel energized with Baraka.
From the seat of power to the apex court in the land. From the criminal justice system to the coalface of government.
Bring solutions to the crisis that the country is facing.
Give us some hope that maybe 2020 will be different to 2019.
I'll cut through the spin to help you make sense of your country, the continent and the world you live in.
To engage with them around, are they right?
The political capital is certainly there.
For your weekly dose of real politics, join me, Karima Brown, on The Fix, every Sunday at 9 a.m, only on ENCA.
Let's go to ENCA Money Desk now. Devin Murugan has joined us. We have that breaking news story this hour. The last quarter, last year, GDP-wise, taking us into a recession. And you just wonder, Devin, how is this economy going to lift itself up? How is it going to grow?
It's going to have to fix itself up, Dan, because low economy, low economic activity means fewer jobs, and we've got 10 million people out of work in this country. So South Africa is once again in a recession. The overall economic growth for 2019 has come in at a dismal 0.2%. Why did that happen? Because Statistics South Africa releasing figures just a moment ago showing that between October and December, that's the last quarter of the year, the economy shrank more than expected by 1.4%. Let's take a quick look to see how we got here. All right, so this is your GDP figures for the year last year, and you see that we had this dismal figure at the start of the year, minus 3.1%. We then got back on our feet, purely due to base effects, by the way, went up into the positive at 3.1%, and then the third quarter dropping to a revised 0.8%. So the economy squeezing itself there. We expected by many economists that the economy in the last quarter between October and December would shrink round about 0.2%. That didn't happen. There comes load shedding, and there comes all the political uncertainty or policy uncertainty, and the economy actually shrinking by 1.4%. All right, let's take a closer look now and see where did this happen. Well, if you look at our primary sector of the economy, the entire primary sector shrinking by 0.4% in that last quarter of last year. Agriculture down by 7.6%. That's a contraction. Mining, we've seen because of the commodity prices, we've seen a bit of a boost in mining. So mining in the last 3 months of the year up by 1.8%. When we look at our secondary sector, and this is important because that's where manufacturing lies. Remember, manufacturing contributing about 12 to 14% of overall economic growth. So if that sector has a problem, then it also doesn't absorb jobs. Well, stats are telling us that in the last quarter, it shrank manufacturing by 1.8%. No surprise that electricity is down and construction nearly 6% in the negative. Again, these are some of the sectors that actually rely on power from Eskom. They rely on policy certainty for it to gain traction, and those negative elements now just coming to fore, and we're seeing that. Tertiary sector, again, trade. Generally in the fourth quarter, you'll find retailers, for example, employing people. It's Christmas time, it's the festive season. Generally, you would see that growth levels picking up. Not the case, though. 3.8% in the negative there. Transport down. Finance generally comes to save the economy, at least in the last few years, 2.7% up, but not enough to shake things down. So generally across the sectors, you have Eskom's load shedding, you have policy uncertainty, you also have the global environment, make no mistake, that's really taking this economy downwards.
The numbers are hard to swallow. Some economists were like Azar Jamin on ENC expecting a little bit of an upswing. It didn't happen. I spoke to Sandy Zoom a short while ago, the president of the Black Business Council. They have a two-day summit tomorrow and Thursday. He was expecting that even if there was load shedding, because it came later in 2019, it wouldn't have the impact that seemingly it had on a sector like manufacturing that relies on power as well. So all the arrows pointing down, most of the arrows that you were showing us pointing down, minus 1.4% contraction. That's not good. Moody's this month, will it take this into consideration, Devin?
Oh, absolutely. At the cornerstone of any rating review is the ability of a country to pay back its debt, its credit worthiness. And a country simply cannot do that if it's not growing fast enough. So whether it's Fitch, it's S&P, or Moody's, who, by the way, is the last ratings agencies to have us on investment grade, any of them would look at this economy's ability to grow itself and generate taxes. Now, Dan, just to give you a sense as to what the numbers mean, what does 0.2% mean in the larger scheme of things? Well, according to the National Development Plan, in order to even make a dent in our unemployment, we need to grow at 5%. At a rate of 5% economic expansion. Well, that latest figure coming in at minus 1.4%, that tells you the gap we have in sorting out our problems in the economy.
Thank you very much. Devin Murugan there from the ENCA Money Desk.